On today's Locked On Royals podcast, we're going to dive into the Kansas City Royals and their thrilling win over the Cleveland Guardians. Why I believe that you can take so much from just this one win for the future of the Kansas City Royals and for the future of what this young core can be, what this young core can produce. We're going to talk about all of that and so much more coming up on today's Locked On Royals podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your teams every day.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Royals podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Royals. Email the show, lockedonroyals@gmail.com. On today's show, we're going to dive into that thrilling win over the Cleveland Guardians. Now, I've been under the weather, so that's why these episodes are going to be back-ended, of course, Monday through Friday. From now on, had a case of the bad virus going around. You know what I mean? I want to talk about that thrilling win, though. We haven't got a chance to talk about it yet because of my sickness, but now we finally do, and I cannot wait to discuss it. It was, I think, a core-defining win for Kansas City, and it's the reason why. It's the reason why you keep watching. It's the reason why you should keep paying attention to this team. In my opinion, I think that this win is what it's all about, and it's what, again, keeps you interested in this season for the rest of the way. I know that sometimes it's easy to look at the box score and look at the standings and be like, well, why on earth would I watch that? Why on earth would I, why on earth would I watch a team that is, buried or that is, not in the mix for the postseason? This is why, to be a part of this growth, to be a part of, watching this team come together and watching this team just gel and learn and grow. I think that it's very important. And I think that it is something that will matter in a big way. So we're going to get into all that, but I do want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Vroom. With Vroom, you can buy a car entirely online with having it delivered straight to you. You never have to go to a dealership ever again, so next time you need to buy a car, just grab your phone, go to vroom.com, and check out the thousands of great cars available. And I do want to tell you folks to check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview. It is very important that you do that because, let's face it, folks, we all love football. You love the Royals. I know you do. But football is where it's at, and especially with the Chiefs starting this week and with hopes that they can once again make a deep postseason run. Everything that goes into that aspect is previewed on the Ultimate Pro Football Preview. So what that is we get all of our local experts together on one podcast extravaganza. It's an 8-part extravaganza, breaking down divisions, postseason, everything like that. Go check that out. Of course, Locked On Chiefs has you covered Monday through Friday, getting ready for the game against the Cardinals. And of course, Locked On Jayhawks, Locked On Mizzou. Locked On Jayhawks doing a great job. And hopefully, the Jayhawks can be 2-0 after this weekend. That's my hot take for the weekend. The syndrome of the weekend, my hot take is that the Jayhawks will beat West Virginia and get a Big 12 conference win early that not a lot of people are expecting. So, let's get into this game. And I think that what you saw in the contest on Wednesday, whenever you had that walk-off by Salvador Perez and you witnessed this team win 2-1 in a walk-off fashion in the ninth inning, I think what you saw was not necessarily a recipe for success, but I think that you saw a lot of what this grit can be, a lot of what this team can be in the future. So early on, the Royals just didn't have it. They couldn't buy a hit. And this was continuing upon their recent poor stretch at the plate. This was a bad series. Now look, Cleveland is in a race for the division pennant, and you did have to play Shane Bieber in this series. He's obviously he's obviously pretty good. He's a little good. So you had to play him. You had to play the Guardians, who are predicated upon pitching. Now, I go on this kind of rant every once in a while, but the Central obviously is not very good. I mean, the Central is obviously the worst division in baseball, but how do the Guardians stay so competitive despite, even through this division not being very good? Even so, they still should and do have a lot of credit to them. How does that happen? Well, it's because of their pitching, and that's what they're built on. That's what the basis of this entire thing is in Cleveland. So it's not, shameful to get shut down by Cleveland pitching. And so that's what Shane Bieber did. And then in the next game, it's kind of a bullpenny day for Cleveland. Of course they didn't put out an ace or anything like that, and they are a little banged up. I think that they have lost Savali for a little bit of time and missing a few guys, but even so, their bullpen game is good enough to dictate a complete dominant performance on the mound. And that's what happened. The Royals just could not buy a hit through 6 innings, through 7 innings, but they never had that quit in them. They never gave up, and they just kept going at it with the best approach possible. And I think that is something in a young team early on. I mean, you think about it. Albeit silly, the Royals did not truly embrace this rebuild or embrace, not the rebuild, but they didn't truly embrace playing young players 24/7 and focusing on young player development. They didn't truly focus on that until the trade deadline. So it's not been all that great of a sample size yet with these young guys. But one early characteristic from this team since the change has been made and since the switch has been flipped to focusing on young players and focusing on development, one key switch has been the fact that the Royals have a much better approach, that the Royals look a lot more confident, and the Royals just do not weigh, at-bats in games. And to me, that's a big deal. And it showed. Once again, we saw that whenever the Royals were getting shut out in this game, not only on the scoreboard, but also just good old-fashioned shutout in the sense of, you couldn't even get a hit. And on the heels of, Shane Bieber doing that to you earlier in the series, and, this series, you had what, like 7 hits at this point combined, and it's getaway day. You're ending the series today. It would have been easy to just quit. It would have been easy to just roll over. Let's give away these last few outs and let's just move on to Detroit, a team that we pounded last weekend, and they're going to be our get right game. Let's forget about this game and let's just go to Detroit and get right. It would have been easy to do that, and honestly, nobody would have really blamed them for doing that. Like, nobody would have really been swinging a cast iron fist. Number one, the Chiefs starting this week, so that's one reason why. But number two, it just makes a lot of sense. Like, this just wasn't your series. But they never had that quit about them, so what do they do in the 9th inning? A couple men get on, you load the bases with a walk, and you continue to fight, and Salvador Perez lifts one into center field for a sac fly for a walk-off hit. I think that right there, I think that sign of what's to come, that grit and toughness, which, look, I know it's not in vogue right now to celebrate those type of things, right? We want to play this on spreadsheets, and even Mike Matheny, who I don't think would be in the class of, if you sit down and talk to a new school guy or an old school guy, I think that they put Mike Matheny more so in the old school category, or maybe somewhere in the middle. But I certainly do not think that he's the poster boy for sabermetrics and the poster boy for advanced analytics. And even he has admitted to, hey, we determine playing time based on a spreadsheet. Like, it's what the spreadsheet dictates. So we want to get to that point so badly in baseball, and we want to have the data points to back it up, and there just is no data for he's got that dog in him, right? There's no data point for they've got grit and toughness. There's no real data point for, hey, these guys just don't look dejected up there, no matter the circumstances. But it's true. That's what the eye test tells you, and that is very important to have. That's a very important quality to have, especially in a grind of a season like this. Look, it's easy to get up for 17 football games. And even when you're playing 82 basketball games or hockey games, right? Like, obviously that's still a grind, but it's spread out enough and there's just enough carrots out there, right? You're going to be on TNT. You're going to be playing LeBron. You're going to be playing these star level players. There's just enough carrots out there to get you juiced for just about every game. And some games guys just don't have it in every sport. But that characteristic of grit, I think, goes a long way in baseball more than a lot of sports, and we don't really talk about it enough in baseball. So I want to talk about that coming up. But first, I want to right now about our good friends over at Blue Chew. Summer's winding down, the nights are getting longer, but the breeze isn't the only thing getting stiff. That's right. This episode is brought to you by Blue Chew. Guys, we all know that confidence can take you far in life. That's especially true in the bedroom, especially when it's time to step up to the plate. That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets at a functional cost and a fraction of the cost. You can take them anywhere, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever the opportunity arises. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and boom, once you're approved, you'll receive a prescription within days. The best part is it's all done online, so no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared to ship directly to your door in a discreet package. With Blue Chew, men everywhere are excited to see the postman, because when your package has arrived, your package has arrived, if you know what I mean. They always say first impression's important, but what about the lasting impression? It's time to get off the couch and back to work. If your tool needs an upgrade, head to BlueChew.com. They say there's nothing sexier than confidence, and Blue Chew can help you get confidence where it counts. So, if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, chew it and do it. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew for free when you use our code LOCKEDON at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code LOCKEDON to receive your first month for free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's Locked On Royals podcast. We are back on the Locked On Royals podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Royals. Email the show, lockedonroyals@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by Vroom, we are going to dive into more of the grit nature of that win over Cleveland, who, of course, wanted that game desperately, wanted that game at such a high importance level because they're only separated by a game in the standings in the division for Cleveland and Minnesota, and 2 games up on Chicago. So the Central is pretty well in reach. There's only 2 teams eliminated so far from that division crown. Not the case in a lot of other spectrums, a lot of other divisions around the sport. So obviously a big game for Cleveland. But yet, Kansas City was victorious in a game in which they only collected 6 hits, and most of them happened at the end of the contest. You look at that Guardians pitching staff. 3 hits happened in the first 4 innings, and then they got 1 hit in the 6th, 1 hit in the 7th, and then what happened was in the 9th, 3 walks, and then the hit plus a sac fly from Salvi, and that's what did it. That's what got you the victory against Cleveland and the Guardians. Why do I think that grit matters more in baseball than any other sport and more than it gets talked about? baseball is such a grind. It is grueling. And I think that people don't necessarily appreciate how grueling it is because it physically it looks the least taxing, right? If you just had to go off of what on the screen exertion looks like, right? What's the exertion level that you can tangibly see on the screen? If that's all you had to go off of, you would probably rank baseball what? Dead last in terms of physical exertion? And you wouldn't be wrong, like that's what the eye test tells you, but when you're playing every single day, it's different. It's just different than what you see on television. And of course, baseball is more prone to those injuries that you can't really see. Like we can easily see a guy who messes up his knee or who breaks his arm or who gets a concussion or who does something in other sports where it's like rolls his ankle in basketball. We can easily physically see that. There's sometimes baseball injuries where they're out for 60 days and it looked like nothing happened. It looked like they just threw a baseball. Like you got a blister on your finger and you're out for 15 days. The grinding, grueling nature of baseball, especially whenever your season is over, which let's face it, I mean, the Royals season is over in the sense of competing. It can be hard to show up to the ballpark each and every day with a positive attitude and with the mindset of, I'm going to win this at bat. I'm going to win this pitch. I'm going to win this inning. I'm going to win this game. It's hard to do that. It's easy to play just by going through the motions. It's easy to just say, hey, I'm a little banged up, so I want to go on the IL. It's easy to just play for yourself, right? Like I'm not going to take a good approach tonight. I'm just going to look for a pitch I can hit out of the park, and that's that. Like I'm not going to go out there looking for anything specific in the sense of like I'm not going to go out there and try to work a count for my guys. I'm not going to go out there and try to play more of a team style of baseball. I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to do, whatever's best and advantageous for me. So the fact that this young team doesn't have that in them is a good thing so far. And I think that the grit nature of baseball is most important because of that fact of how grueling it is and how you really have to like your guys. I mean, you're with these guys day in, day out. You're with these guys more than you're with your family in most cases. I think that the never give up attitude is a true difference maker. It's what that 2015 Royals team had, and it's a quality that this team has, it looks like. Now, this team, in the sense of not the specific 2022 version, right? But the players that make up this team. It looks like Bobby Witt Jr. doesn't have quit in him. It looks like MJ Melendez doesn't have quit in him. It looks like, right? It looks like, Nick Prado doesn't have quit in him. Vinny Pasquantino doesn't have quit in him. You can see the swagger and edge from a guy like Brady Singer every time he takes the mound. Of course, Salvador Perez has been there, done that. And I think that he is the perfect leader for this Royals team who is made up of guys. I think this Royals team is made up of guys who want to be great and who want to do whatever it takes to win. And you've got a winner in your locker room. Now, of course, when you're talking about winning, a lot of that's just due to talent level. And I do believe that we can all agree that a lot of these Royals players have that talent level, but they need to just gel as a team more and kind of develop as a team more, and they will. But I'm excited. I'm excited for what the score can do for games like that, where they just never gave up. And I think that this series as a whole was a good learning lesson. And some of them were positive, like this game on Wednesday. Some of them were a little not positive in the sense of like feel good positive, right? The Shane Bieber game, that wasn't positive in the sense of like feel good. Whenever he goes out there and gives up just the one solo home run and then goes 8 innings of 4-hit baseball and 7 strikeouts. Salvador Perez hit that home run in the 4th inning off of Shane Bieber, and that was one of 4 hits he allowed. Whenever he carves you up like that and shuts you down like that, it doesn't feel good in the moment. But it's giving these young guys opportunity and turns through the order against guys like Shane Bieber that will allow them to eventually be great. that will allow them to eventually take the next step in their career, that will allow them to progress to the point that you want to see them at. Because I think that it's important that, we always talk about, is he a good manager or not with Mike Matheny? The one thing I'll give him credit for is that he somehow convinced these guys to take that good, positive approach each and every day. And that is incredibly important whenever you're going to get to face Shane Bieber. Because getting to face guys like Shane Bieber, as long as you're taking that seriously and you are going out there with a good approach and you're trying to adjust and you're trying to learn, that even if he shuts you down for this specific game, that gives you, 3 at-bats, 4 at-bats, and of course you're going to see them again. That gives you 3 at-bats, 4 at-bats of positive data points. And, by data points, I kind of mean in this case film, like positive film to go back and look for. Like, hey, how is he pitching me? How can I make the adjustment? How could I have made this swing better or that swing better? And whenever you have a bunch of guys, like Bobby Witt Jr. and MJ Melendez specifically, who I think are just workhorse guys, like I think that they love the grind of baseball and they love to improve and want to be great and they want to put in that extra work because, specifically those two guys I'm looking at because of not only how they talk and how they seemingly approach the game. They talk like they want to be great, but also their background. Like Bobby Witt Jr. comes from a big league family, and MJ Melendez comes from a family that runs Division I baseball programs and of course has coached at a high level and knows what it takes to be great. So I think that it's all very important for Kansas City, even the ups and the downs, but that up on Wednesday felt so good. Again, that just felt like a 2015 game where your starter gave you just enough. Zach Greinke was really good, and then your offense gave you just enough. Like they didn't have it at first, but they didn't quit, and eventually they broke through. Eventually, you just grinded them down. And that's kind of how the Royals are going to have to be successful for their entire existence. They're never going to build a team in which you look at and just say, wow, those guys are world beaters. Wow, those guys, like, you just can't beat them. They're never going to build that kind of team. They're just not. So I think that it's very important whenever you see that. And I think it's very important to see that and appreciate it. Let me know what you think about that win Wednesday. Did that excite you? Did that get you hyped up for this weekend series against Detroit? I am. Man, like me personally, I know that we're excited for the Chiefs. And I seriously, go check out Locked On Chiefs. They do a great job Monday through Friday prepping you for the game and recapping the game, everything like that. I'm hyped up for the Chiefs. Like, I'm very excited about the Chiefs game Sunday. But I am just as excited about the Royals series because I want to see them now take that high of Wednesday, take it into a matchup in which you should be favored and you should be able to have some success. Like, this is where you get out that frustration of being shut down a bit as an offense against Cleveland. I want to see them get that kind of hammer out, so to say. I'm excited. And I think that Brady Singer on Sunday, by the way, he's going to be money. I hope he's money because just as a little peek behind the curtain, Brady Singer's on my fantasy team. I'm going to need him to be pretty good. I'm going to need him to dominate real quick on Sunday to help me get over the hump and win this fantasy playoff game. So until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.